Correa Bond.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It is with great privilege that I stand here today on behalf of New Zealand First and speak to the New Zealand Public Health and Disability Southern DHB Elections Bill. Now, Mr Speaker, this is a bill that's very dear to my heart. It's also very dear to the community that I reside in, having grown up there from the age of 14 and actually having two of my children born at the Southland Hospital. I just want to touch on a few points that previous members have spoken about today. And I do want to say that the number of submitters were quite small, and we heard them and read their submissions. And I think that it's fair to say that I can echo what Right Honourable Annette King said in her call about the issues that were worked throughout the Health Select Committee to ensuring that all parties had their say throughout that committee process. And I do also want to touch on what Mr Haig said about the fact that Māori representation, or the voice of Māori, were actually forgotten about by the Health Minister, and I'm quite pleased now that Ngāi Tahu will be the voice of Māori to ensure that we don't get forgotten about in this bill. Now, I just also want to address a statement earlier made by Jackie Dean when she said it's not about the food. Well, actually, it doesn't take a saint to understand, Mr Speaker, that when you're in hospital and you've had surgery, you need a good square diet, good food to actually recover. And if you're not getting fed good food that's good in nutritional value, you're actually going to, as a patient, stay in hospital for longer. So I don't support that statement at all. I also want to point out that it's been mentioned about the number of elected surgeries. Well, down in Southland, where I come from, where my family have grown up, with the community that I know best, I can actually say I've had people come into my office, Mr Speaker, where they've shown me they've been kicked off the elective surgery list, and I've had to write letters to the Minister to ask them to reconsider the treatment to those constituents. Now, we've all heard the government say so many times that this bill is about a cost-cutting and it's about efficiency. But I believe this bill means so much more, Mr Speaker. I believe that there's a bigger problem than this, and that's the fact that our community have a right to have a say. We deserve to have our voices heard where it becomes to do with local healthcare and how that's managed. And Southlanders have had to ask themselves, what are their priorities and where does their priority lie? And what do they believe in? And is it important that they actually get to have a say over what healthcare services are dispensable or being made dispensable in Southland? So under the guise of fiscal responsibility, this National League government has decided it wants to suspend the Southerners' right to vote for our healthcare representatives. The Minister believes that he knows best. He appointed his commissioner and thinks that she knows best. Well, Minister Coleman, I can tell you now that Southlanders think that actually they know best how to vote for the people in their community to ensure that they have the right to lobby that those members on the board at such time as they need to. In Southland, we recognise that there is a deficit problem with our DHB, and New Zealand First strongly believes in holding the DHB fiscally accountable for the choices that they've made. But New Zealand First does not believe in railroading the democratic process to simply fulfil a cost-cutting exercise. Elections are often thought of as the heart of the political process. That's how the Minister got into Parliament, and that's how New Zealand First got into Parliament too. In New Zealand, democracy gives people the ability to be the owners of their own destiny. Think for a moment about some of the recent examples of New Zealanders standing up and sending a message. The Northland by-election is a good example, Mr Speaker. So many constituents have been in contact with me, and in fact over the last week I've been to one public protest in Otago where it's been echoed already that there are over 400 people attending, and that was because they were not satisfied with the food that they were receiving in the hospital or out in the community through the Meals on Wheels process. I've also been to one public meeting in Invercargill where the Deputy Mayor came to talk about the fact that we have a problem with this Compass contract, and we deserve the right to have our say, to show our disapproval. And we're certainly planning on more meetings, Mr Speaker. The food that's being served to our patients at the Southland District Health Board, it is an issue, and I know that earlier you said for the previous member to bring it in, but Mr Speaker, thanks. But Mr Speaker, the issue is that the DHB has been forced to deal with a deficit, and in that being that they've actually had to force to take on a contract that they have to watch their bottom line. So that contract is part of that process. You know, I asked in the Select Committee to the DHB when they appeared before us, you know, would they be prepared to actually put an independent food auditor in to spot check the food to make sure that it had a nutritional value? And that just went on deaf ears, and that was actually really sad. So, and I'll come back to an area that I'm quite interested in, and people in Invercargill too, is that the ability for the people of Invercargill to actually lose, or sorry, to be stripped of our rights to vote for our elected DHB, as this bill comes before the House, is an indictment. In Southland, it means that we cannot have the voice to fight for our rights, to voice against our absolute horror about the slop that's been served to our people. So we don't get the right to actually hold our board responsible, and we absolutely lose the right to hold the Minister of Health responsible too, Mr. Speaker. And we lose that right until such time as the Minister sees fit to return the people of Southland the right to vote for our DHB members. Now, we heard that that could be in 2019, and I've heard Annette King mention that she surely does hope that that occurs. And New Zealand First is quite hesitant to actually completely, absolutely trust that that will occur, given that recently in this House, another bill was put forward to actually extend a time for the Canterbury area to not have their democratic vote. Now, I heard before too that from previous members that Southlanders do deserve the right to vote. So do actually do Otago people. You know, they deserve to have, and Otago especially, they deserve to have their input into the new rebuild or the overdue renovations of the Otago Hospital. You know, they deserve to say what services that they want for their community. So when the Minister appointed the Commissioner to run the Southland District Health Board, you know, he was quoted in the ODT in June saying, "The plan is really for the Commissioner to stay on as appointed members of that board and new elected members to come on at the local body election." Now, I still don't understand why this still cannot be the solution. And I'm asking, why was there such a big U-turn, Minister Coleman? Why can't Southlanders vote for the remaining board members, and then everyone actually gets what they want? And that's really, in the end of the day, to have their say, to ensure that the community is not lost in that. So stripping the vote from Southlanders from this national-led government is placing all the decision-making powers in an unelected few, and that really concerns us. Now, this is the same government that oversaw the merger of the Southland and Otago District Health Boards in 2010. So it further streamlined a centralised agenda, and it actually burdened our DHB because we have the biggest or the largest geographic area in New Zealand. Now, that national-led government watched from the sidelines for years as the DHB struggled without giving any timely assistance. That government has gone to great lengths to blame the former board management, while they quickly undertook a review of the population-based funding formula. Now, for me, if that's not a concession that they've starved our DHB of adequate funding, then I don't know what is. We know from the Cabinet papers that the Rural Adjuster calculation did not adequately fund the Southland DHB, and the DHB missed out on the correct funding for many years. And I asked the DHB when they appeared before the Health Select Committee, how much money do they think they actually missed out on that continued to add to their deficit? And have a guess what? They couldn't tell me. They could not give me a figure. They could not do that. I asked how responsible that is of that Commissioner and his subcommittee members now, today. Not the previous board that could have told us, but the Commissioner that we've got in place now. And Mr. Speaker, more than 40% of the Southern DHB population lives outside the urban centres, and that increases the cost of the delivering of services. With such a big region to service, it's no wonder they struggle to meet their service needs and their financial needs also. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I want to issue a challenge to the Labour Party tonight. If you support the Real Meal Coalition for a call to stop the Compass contract, why are you supporting this bill that will strip Southlanders and Otago people of their democratic right to vote? Thank you. New Zealand First opposes this bill.
Sarah Dowie.